The FNRad Snowboard podcast is presented by Vans. Season 6 of FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Anon Optics, Ocean Rose Organics and Crow's Nest Barbershops, Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC, and Stance Socks. Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC is the premier destination when you're getting dialed in to ride the Kootenays. If you're on a road trip to Whitewater or Baldface, be sure to stop by Tribute and say hi to some of the most dedicated snowboarders on the planet. Check out Tribute's new show, The Tribute Lounge, on YouTube for their reviews of all the latest on-snow gear. And subscribe and like Tribute's YouTube channel. There are a couple spots left to be entered into the raffle for a 32 collab with Spring Break outerwear kit. This week's guest is absolute legend Wes Makepeace, the kind of snowboarder we all should aspire to be more like. Wes started his career on Aggression, eventually sharing a pro model with Rocket Reeves. Then he had pro models on Lamar, and now he's on LibTech. Wes's two-man band Titty Fish features himself and Jamie Lynn. Wes is an accomplished singer-songwriter, and he's got a gap at Mt Seymour named after him under the mystery chair. Please join me in welcoming this week's guest, Wes Makepeace.
I bought a tree line, ordered it from the snowboard shop in Calgary, and the day I got it, I built a jump up the street in this little meadow, went back home for lunch, and I went back downstairs and it had de-lammed, right? Because it was wood and it had the little skegs on the side, which was a good thing because obviously it was like the universe is telling me, get one with edges.
Nice, nice.
So I got an avalanche.
So it was a tree line. I've never even heard of that before in my life.
They had, they were just kind of like, I only ever saw them at the snowboard shop.
Yeah.
And I don't think they had edges. You could get one without the skegs or with the skegs. So I went deluxe.
Awesome. So the avalanche board, era?
I got that from, it was an Avalanche Reflex, and I ordered that from PD's in Vancouver, PD's Hot Shop.
I love that PD was into it at that early of a...
PD's the coolest. He actually took, at his Oak Street location, me and my buddy JD Demers, he took us up top and showed us all the old original Osoyoos hammerhead skull skates, and just he's got a huge collection up there, and I would see him randomly up at the park in Whistler sometimes and say what up, and he just took us up there and showed us all these skates, and I was pretty stoked to see the original Osoyoos. I mean, those Osoyoos were made by everybody, but the skull skates ones were the baddest.
Was the unfriggin' believable that hammerhead was a skull skate at one point.
Yeah,
I don't know what era.
It was probably the best one.
Yeah,
It was the legit one.
Yeah. So you got a reflex. That's the ironing board, right? With the pointy nose.
It didn't have point. It had a rounded nose. It wasn't like the one, the super point.
Yeah.
Because my buddy had that one, and he had. But I rode the barfoot bindings on it.
Oh, sick!
And I actually had to put new clips on it because the barfoot bindings came with they were just like straps, like seatbelt strap buckles, and so they didn't really hold your feet in there that good. Like you were talking about how coming out of the bindings.
Yeah.
The boots.
Yeah.
So, that was. So that's when I got on the hill, was with that.
Barfoot bindings that I remember were metal base plates, very heavy, very solid.
The high backs looked amazing. They weren't stiff at all, but they went almost up to your knee, and they had that bear claw that went up past your.
We've talked about it a lot of times. That barfoot branding was it was up there with Sims and Burton. As far as something cool.
Yeah, just like the Skull Skates logo.
It was so sick.
I want that.
Yeah. So, where are you riding when you've got that avalanche?
Red Mountain.
Oh wow.
So we all had to get. There was about 5 of us. 3 of those dudes were ski racers, so they ripped right off the bat, and it took me a year or 2 to catch up to those guys because they were ski racers, so they knew how to use their edges, they knew how to go through the moguls. Meanwhile, I'm cartwheeling through the moguls. But we had to get certified, and I was super hyped because it was either you had to stay on the T-bar if you sucked, or if you're okay, You could do T-bar, red chair, and then I was stoked because I got all mountain.
Nice.
So I was like, oh, I must be ripping.
It's always been a failing of ski resort. Fucking rope tow's the absolute hardest thing to do. Like, technically, T-bar is probably harder, maybe. Yeah, so it's a tie between those two things.
It's still hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember that about the glacier in the summer. Like,
well, the gnarliest part about your day was getting your beginner campers up that T-bar.
Yeah.
Without either of you falling off. I pretty much had to pick kids up sometimes, and it was like holding on with one hand, got one kid wrapped around your waist. It was, but yeah.
So Red Mountain, a few years. How do you get sponsored by somebody in Colorado? You must have traveled?
There was a film crew that came up. This guy, his name was Richard Bell, and he actually filmed the U2-1 video. Oh, wow. And that was his claim to fame. And he wanted to make a snowboard video, and he had a house at Red Mountain. So he went to Colorado and picked up Megan Pischke, Morgan Lafont, Quinn Sandvold, and Tarquin Robbins, and brought him to Red Mountain. And I was just like riding under the chair, and there's this English guy, Wes, we want you to be in our movie. And he was just like, he had a wife, but I didn't believe a word, like it was.
Yeah, dude.
But so anyways, I was like, sure, and then those guys, Quinn didn't ride for Aggression, but yeah, Tarquin, and then
Quinn was on Nitro, right?
Yes, that's right.
That's sick.
And then they were riding Twist too. So even though the Twist gear, the owners were super small, and they used to like make XL gear for them, and it didn't like I think Tarquin was riding the XL pants, and they'd be like above his boots, so that stuff didn't fit for a while, but they were the best dudes, and I used to go down to Boulder and hang out all the time and go ride like Loveland Pass, and yeah, it was just an awesome crew of people down there. And I'd go down like, say, the middle of October, and you could ride till Halloween, where you couldn't ride here till middle of November. So you'd get, back then you're so stoked you'd want to ride all the time. So that's what we did.
Were you a contest rider at the time, or you just?
No, I did a West Beach series in high school, and I won the overall just because I think I went to every contest. And it was moguls half pipe, moguls slalom, or whatever. That was my first bank slalom. I think it was at Hemlock. And,
sick.
And Ross Rebegliati beat me. He got. That was one of my best races ever. Ross Rebegliati beat me at my first border cross, and then my first bank slalom, Terrier beat me. So if Terrier beat, I was pretty much that's as good as winning. If Terrier beat you by 10/100ths of a second, I was pretty stoked.
Yeah, that's super sick. Is that the actual bank slalom?
That was at the Mount Baker bank slalom.
You got second?
Yeah, the first time I went.
Oh wow, dude, that's sick.
And never got close since. No, I've been in the Masters the last few years. I've won a few blankets, so it's fun. I'm always just happy to race on Sunday. It's just there has been years I haven't raced at all, and you're still it's a good time down there. It's just a good vibe.
Yeah,
racing or not racing, you're having a beer and you're stoked.
I have a really big appreciation after having talked to Gwen about the history of Mount Baker. Like, you don't think about it when you just go and you buy a lift ticket. What you're thinking is like, holy shit, it's $80 for a lift ticket, oh god. But you don't think about the amount of legitimacy of Mount Baker, and the fact that they had to make decisions that were money decisions, and they erred on the side of like, yeah, you know what, we're not going to put in like a 6-pack, we're not going to like. I
was talking to Gwen on the chair 2 years ago, and she's like, Wes, I turned down $10,000 in advertising in the last 2 months. I'm just like, yeah, Gwen, you're the best. It'll always be just black chairlifts, and you will never see a monster poster down there. And like Duncan said at the last bank slalom, he's like, we will always remain fiercely independent.
That's rad.
It's the best spot. And I mean, look at the riders that came out of there. I mean, it's the spot.
And still now,
it's still the best mountain in the world.
Yeah, for chairlift access, I went down to Squaw 2 seasons ago now, or we're still in a season. So last season, and I'm going to argue for sure KT22 at Squaw Valley has probably comparable under the chairlift access to like gnarly terrain.
Yeah.
Like really cool stuff. But generally speaking, Baker's got they've got everything that you want. They've got like side country access to like world
and it's
class.
so steep that every bump is a jump, and there's tranny on the other side of it. You know, like you go up on the arm or hemispheres, it's like, especially out on the Shuckson, it's like that's a heli drop.
Yes, absolutely.
You know? And it's except it's you know, you're not just, you know, you're not going to get dropped off on that kind of stuff right away anyway. So
yeah,
it's as good as it gets.
I think that's been the learning curve for me this year. I've talked about it for a couple of years. I think the best chairlift in the world that's not a chairlift, is a snowmobile for sure, because you get to pick where you go.
Yeah.
When you're in a helicopter, you go, can we go there? And they go, oh, hell no.
Well, yeah, there's usually a warm up. They got to test you out. Well, I mean, but not in Alaska. Alaska, they'll drop you off wherever you want, whether they're got their skis on the ground or not. So.
Yeah, so would you get a pass at Baker those years?
No, I get a pass now from LibTech, but I back then I was just buying tickets.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, they're 65 now. They were probably 45 back then in the mid-90s.
They took Canadian at par too. So
so they're the best.
Yeah, they've always been the best. They
really are the best.
So when did you move to Whistler? At what point did you move to Whistler?
I was living in Rosslyn after high school, and I think once I did that trip with Quinn and Tarquin and Megan up there, I was like, oh, there's a skate park here, and there's 15 bars, and there's girls. I mean, it didn't take much longer. Maybe a couple months later, I think I was still paying rent in Rosslyn, and it was just like, it was over once I got there. I mean, the skate park just really sold me. I was like, this place is awesome. And so probably, I think 93, I think I was like just kind of lurking, like staying at Dano's place, like in the back fix-it room, lurking around when Schwarty wasn't there, you know. So, but it was the best thing I'd ever, encountered. So
what was the crew situation like?
When I showed up with the Colorado dudes, it was Mike Hager and Sheen Campos that were showing us around, and we were just cruising, kind of doing the same thing I do today, which is cruising around, jamming the banks and looking for side hits. Yeah, and that's what we were just following those guys, and I'd never seen anything like that, because like Blackcomb just has the hugest banks, and there was, Red Mountain just doesn't have hit runs like Blackcomb and Whistler. So those guys were showing us around, and it was awesome. So those are the first dudes I met in Whistler, and then and once I started living in Whistler, it was like, we didn't have cell phones back in the day. You just go to the lift and ride with whoever, and I mean that's who I still do that. But it was Hager and Sheen and Mikey Orr, who's just one of my favorite snowboarders ever. He's just the best, and just such a ripping skater. And and there's that was kind of the crew. There's the Creekside Mob, all the lokes that hung out there. That's who I rode with.
What was it like? Because Khyber's is probably on the trail map now, but like back then, you had to know somebody. Back then,
you wouldn't run into families from out of town that are just lost, having to give directions. Now it's so open, anybody can go down there. But back then, it was, you had to know where you're going. I mean, I don't think about it now, but back then, if I'd lose those guys on the hill, which it happened a lot, your binding would break or something like that. It was kind of like the end of my day, because I didn't really know where to go for the first. At Baker, you kind of see everything from the chair. Yeah. And just like you ride it. But at Whistler, you needed to know where to go a bit, especially riding, peak to creeks down Khyber's and $1 Million and all that stuff. You kind of needed to know where to go, and if you went the wrong way, if you went too far left in Khyber's, you're hiking. Yeah. It happened to everybody. Hopefully it didn't happen to you with your girlfriend.
Oh God.
But it did. So it's but I love that. Like I ride Blackcomb mostly, but when it snows, I love doing the big laps down to Creekside.
Was that cabin always there? I remember seeing Jamie's signature in it, probably 95 or something, and just being like, oh my God.
The one that was built up on the stilts? Mm-hmm. No, that was built for our friend Darren Proctor after he died. And the boys went up there in the summertime and built it, and it actually, they didn't obviously to tell a ski patrol about it. And then once the patrol found it, they're like, you guys can keep this, but you just can't have a lock on it, because if somebody needs to get in here,
Yeah.
And then eventually, I think, it was probably 10 years ago, it just, 5-7 years ago, it just kind of crumbled.
It's gone.
Yeah. Well, the remnants are there,
yeah.
But it's not, weather takes its toll.
It's probably worth it to get in there and pull out some of that wall with all those signatures on it. There's a lot of cool people have left a mark on that cabin.
Yeah, it was always a nice spot to stop on the way down, for sure.
Yeah. And Darren Proctor, was he a pro rider, or
no?
like kind of
semi-pro? He was just part of the Creekside mob, just a homie and just an amazing dude. And I mean, when I got to Whistler, I probably hadn't played hockey in 5 or 6 years, and he convinced me to go buy hockey equipment and start playing for the the beer league team. I forget the name. But anyway, yeah, he convinced me to start playing hockey again, so I did that for a couple years. And then he actually gave me, when he moved, he lived right above the Max Fish. When he moved out of there, he's like, you can have this place if you want. So I moved in there right before the Max Fish had opened up.
Oh,
and
wow.
So that was just like my spot for a few years.
Oh, that's sick. Yeah,
it was sick at the time, but
oh yeah. So he tragically passed away in an avalanche.
In an avalanche,
right?
yeah. So it's, but he was just an amazing dude, and we all, just really loved him and loved hanging out with him. And he's just one of those guys we just rode with every day. And
so sick.
Great hockey player, and just an awesome dude.
So your sponsorship with Aggression would have gone probably right till the end of Aggression, right? Like Aggression tanked at.
I rode Aggression until, it was only maybe a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then once I started hanging out with the Lamar dudes, it was like, oh, I can ride for Lamar. This is, it was just better boards,
Yeah.
And, and I got to go to Japan and stuff like that. So
That's pretty intense.
But actually, I had me and Rocket Reeves. I never ever got one, but me and Rocket Reeves had a dual pro model.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they're out there somewhere. I think I've maybe seen one time.
And you never got.
And I never even knew Rocket or anything like it. And he was right. He'd been riding on Aggression for a while, so he was like, "Who's this fucking Wes Makepeace guy? I got to share a pro model. What the fuck?" But we were both big dudes, so it worked out, So, but I never ever rode one, never ever got one. But
what would it have been? Like a 75 or something?
No, it would have been like a 65. I don't think it was anything more than that.
All right, listeners, you guys are on a mission to find one of those. Send it up here to Canada.
If your pro model's a 170, you're not selling any. So
yeah, that's absolutely true. Right? Yeah. Ah, that's amazing.
So everybody rode a 65 back then.
So what was your board when you get onto Lamar? Like, what would you? I
would just be riding the biggest ones, which would be probably the Rankwits. They had one big board that was like a 69 that had a big shotgun on it, and I rode that a bit, but it wasn't too freestyle-y. Like I wanted to be on a freestyle board, so I might have rode it a couple times when there was POW, but mostly it was the Rankwits. Because he had the biggest boards.
Yeah, his was a 65, I think.
Something like that. 59s to maybe 63s or something.
Oh yeah, 63. I think you're actually right.
The biggest one, I think, had like all his CDs lined up on it, which was that was a pretty cool graphic.
His marketing, as far as like putting graphics on his pro model boards, like the guitar, the Heineken label, the CDs, like those boards were like the boards you wanted those years, 100%.
Yeah, it was
best boards in the world.
the guitar one was my favorite for sure.
Yeah. Did you go on Lamar trips? Like, did Bert pay for you guys to?
Yeah, it was
travel
just kind
a
of like, you'd go to Japan once a year, hanging at Baker, with Rankwood sometimes, and then sometimes I would just like, just ride down. We would rent these cabins. They had these little blue cabins at the edge of a glacier. You could rent the $60 for the small one or $100 for the big one. So I'd, call Temple and Hetzel and Cersei, and those guys used to come up all the time, and we just, hang out and shred. So it was, and then, sometimes with Jamie, sometimes with Temple, Hetzel, Cersei, Selaznick would come up sometimes.
Oh, wow.
And it was the best, Back then, it's like, even when I lived in Whistler full time, I was hanging down at Baker 50% of the time. I just knew that, like, this is what it's supposed to be like, so. Right. I just liked the vibe. I liked hanging at the snowboard shop with Dobis, and it was just it was just a legendary spot. And you look at the people like, Craig and Dan Donnelly, Jeff Fulton, Carter Turk, who is my absolute hero. You know, he's like a living, breathing, Sasquatch. You never ever see that dude, and I always I'll see Kelly Jo down bigger. I'm like, you seen Carter? Where is he? And she's like, oh, somebody saw him here or whatever. And, but even when he won the Thunderbird Award, it's like he never even showed up to get it. Like he's just like doesn't give a shit. But he's I remember seeing photos of him back in ISM 1987, and he was just the dude, just riding by himself, the gnarliest shit. And it's just like that's still today. I'm just like he's the baddest.
Yeah, I called him maybe first, second season of the show, because I know Carter Turk. The name is like legendary.
Yeah.
And but I had no idea about him, so I'm like asking him, like, what was it like hanging out with Craig? He's like, well, I didn't really hang out with Craig that much. Like, well, who was your crew?
By himself.
Yeah. He's like, I remember him being like, who are you again, and what is this for?
Yeah.
How did you get this number?
Yeah, it's so crazy.
Yeah, he had his own style, but that was one of the things. His style was like the kind of guy that you would want to shred like that. I loved it at lunch when you're like, when people would show up in their, what did you call it, tie-dyed pajamas?
Oh, that was well. Bert got ripped on back in the day. He was at Hood riding, and he had tie-dyed his long johns, and was riding in them, right? And,
right.
And but it's like, I'm pretty sure Palmer, Roach, and Hetzel never ever let him hear the end of it, right?
Right, of course.
Because that's who, if you were doing kooky shit back in the day, those dudes would regulate, and that's what you did, because they were skateboarders, and that's what happens.
That's how we got where we are now.
Exactly.
Is without those guys, this would be definitely something different.
Yeah. Snowboarding's not about racing. It's like, yeah, we do it. I do the bank slalom because I'm there when it goes on, but it's like, I'm not a racer. I'm not going to go do any other races, It's like,
yeah.
But I love it. It's awesome. It's about getting on your freestyle board and just trying to, and you're not, there's so much competition down there between your bros and stuff. Or not with me, but like, people, friends placing bets and stuff like that. But you're just racing against yourself. You're just trying to do your best and get to the bottom of the course without falling on your ass.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens, and sometimes it doesn't.
Well, there's a couple of things going on there at the same time. First is you got to get in to the race. Yeah. So there's a lot of people who are down there that aren't in the race.
Yeah.
So like, it's actually an excuse to go to Mount Baker, which is something you should do all the time anyway.
You'll have just as much fun whether you're racing or not.
Yeah.
And you might have more fun because you won't be so friggin' nervous.
Stressed out. And then there's the actual race, and you'd love to win, obviously. And you want to take it serious, but at the same time, like you're saying, you're just hoping that you can go faster than you feel comfortable.
And you really have to. If you're going to win, you really have to know, like I'm going to win. Like the first time I went there, I'm pretty sure I told Johnson, like, I'm going to win it, and I'm drunk and I'm going to win it.
Yeah, Palmer.
No, but I actually, my first pro model for Lamar, I actually had it made super, super damp. It was made at K2 actually, and so it was good on the ice and stuff like that. And I thought I was going to win it, and it was like after the race was over, actually Darren Proctor came up. Those guys that did just the Whistler crew just came down to hang out, and he actually came up right before the awards, and he's like, "You got second." But I was stoked, right?
Yeah.
Because Terry beat me, and and he like shook my hand, when he won, and it was awesome. And then I realized why some dudes were taking off their jackets, especially someone as big as me, like, yeah, take off your jacket, dummy. And now, yeah, it makes a difference. Like Terry will walk around now, and he'll just like go up to people with their hood, smack their hood. He's like 2 seconds, fucking or. Like baggy clothes, like 2 seconds, 1 second, and he's right. He's right.
Yeah.
So
that would just be the most fun time back then too, because in between you're taking runs with people from all over the world.
Yeah,
and you're showcasing your home mountain. That is so insane.
Ripping some POW.
Yeah, and probably ripping some of the best POW of the year, because it's always in February.
So fun. I mean, it's even when I'm like, I'll be down there midweek riding around by myself, and there's no one else on the chairs, and it's still that fun. It's still so fun. And then when everybody you've ever known in snowboarding is there doing it with you, it's like it's the biggest party in the world.
That's the best.
It's the funnest party. That's my kind of party.
Yeah.
Baker party.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So do you ride with Johnson a bunch? Where's Johnson based out of at that time? Is he still in Whistler?
Johnson, I don't think ever came to Baker with us. Maybe once. I did ride with him. Like I remember like riding with him in Japan, probably in Whistler.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't long after that I was on Lamar that he went to World Industries.
Oh yeah.
So it was only like I maybe did 1 or 2 trips with him. So
right.
But best trips ever because he's so friggin' funny. Like
oh yeah,
Johnson in Japan. I mean, if you got to be a part of that, it was just like he got to show you his bee sting. You know about the bee sting?
No.
He would just fucking he'd just be in the van. He's like, oh dude, check out my bee sting, and he'd just have one of his nuts in his hand. Sticking out the end.
Yeah,
funny.
He's hilarious. And he's the best. Definitely talking with him. It was so fun to sit down with him and watch him reminisce. And then right after, he was like, that was the worst.
If I was going to do a podcast,
yeah,
he's the first person I would get to be on the podcast because he's like, he's that funny. Just that smirk on his face, you just start laughing.
Yeah, and we were talking about it. He's also one of the best snowboarders of that era. Like, yeah, he really, talented-wise.
I saw him riding with Neil Edgeworth at Big White the first time I ever went there, and and they were both like riding, Burtons, and they had the Burton gear on, and he just blasted like a backside 360 mute like right in front of me, and I'd never seen anybody do that before, and I was like, he kind of like showed me how to do it. It was like fully stand up, grab the nose, but it was awesome, and he was just like. I seen those guys at a whitewater contest too, and they were just like him and Edgeworth. They were just like the best dudes there, no problem.
Edgeworth too, hey?
Yeah.
I don't know much about Edgeworth, as far as like
he kind of fell off into partying not long after that, I think. But he was just a legend too. I mean, that's why they have the Edgeworth Bank Slalom out
Absolutely.
there and stuff. But yeah, I remember seeing him a couple times back in the day, and. With Johnson and those guys he was just like he was doing it as good as you could do it back then,
I love thinking of Sean Johnson on a Burton board, like it's just such a mashup of, Burton just it wasn't the right brand for certain people. Like I remember Devin getting, coming in the shop and saying, yeah, Burton's offering me this.
My feet wouldn't have fit on one of those.
They didn't have
but I had a couple buddies that had the Craig Kelly Mystery Airs, and it worked for them.
Oh yeah.
I had to be on at the same time I was on like on a Kemper freestyle, because they made a 65, which was.
Yep. That black one with the triangles. And that board was actually ahead of its time as far as like how it rode.
It was good. Yeah. And it was a nose. if you looked at it now, it's pretty kick, but back then it was a sick shape. Like the shape was sick for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, those guys. Kemper was right in there for a really long time, in that like late '80s, early '90s. But they never. Yeah.
Yeah, they had Hetzel, so.
Yeah.
I was sold.
Yeah.
So
you do some trips with Hetzel. Would you go to California every year? Like, was there like kind of a circuit that you would do?
Hetzel would come up.
Oh yeah.
With Cersei up to Baker. That's before he was riding Lamar, and then I would go down I went down to Tahoe and hung out with him down there a little bit. And
what was Tahoe like in the early '90s?
You know what? I didn't hang out there a lot, but I do remember like going to hang out like at Jurassic Park.
Oh wow!
And that was pretty fun, riding around with J2, just screaming his ass off.
Rad.
And, riding down, and then we do trips like Lamar trips there. I think that's what it was. Why I was there, it was a Lamar trip, and just riding around the park, and you could ride there at night too. And
so, did you have to worry about lift ticket costs and all that stuff, or was that like Lamar?
No, Lamar took care of everything. It was just like you just expense everything.
Yeah.
And they'd buy the plane tickets and stuff like that. So it was awesome.
That's so.
I got
sick.
to go to Japan once a year, and it was, and then they'd pay you too. Like they'd pay you like whatever, like $1,500 US at the end of your trip. Buy a fucking mini disc player. Unless they don't pick you up for the demo, or you do the demo and they don't pick you up for dinner, and then everybody else gets to go out to dinner, and then you got to throw everything in the hotel room out the window. And then Jay Nelson lights the hotel room on fire. And then you try and sneak into the van in the morning, and one of the reps is almost crying. And so it's like, okay, we didn't get away with it. And I go to the front desk, and Gom, he was the other rep. He's like, "Did you throw a coffee pot out a window?" I'm like, "I threw everything out the window. Why didn't you come get me for dinner? I was the only one that did the demo." Ranquit and Jay Nelson were like, "Dude, don't go do." They didn't want to ride, right? So they were giving me shit because I wanted to ride. I'm like, "You can't get weed in Japan." Some Japanese kid had given me a doobie. I was hyped. I'm like, "I'm gonna go get stoned, and I'm gonna do the demo."
Rad.
It was rad. I had a blast, and finally they're like, "Okay, Wes is making us look bad, so we'll go get our gear on." An hour later, and they end up jumping off the lift as it goes through the park, right? So they get kicked off the mountain. Well, I'm staying in their room that night, so they don't pick any of us up for dinner. And so we went down to the hotel bar and found some kids on the street that nobody recognized me, but recognized Ranquit, and we're like, "Yeah, come with us." So we brought them back to the hotel bar for beer. So charged like $500 in beer at the hotel bar to the room, and then threw everything out the window. And Jay was like lighting toilet paper on fire and tossing it around. I'm like, "Dude, just quit doing that." And Ranquit was trying to sleep, and of course one of these pieces of toilet paper goes underneath the bed. Next thing you know, the room's on fire. Like and Jay, and he's like, "Jay, get some towels." And we're like grabbing like towels, wet towels, and putting them all over the place. And then look, we think we have it out, and look underneath the bed, and the bedboards underneath are like smoldering.
Oh my God.
So we finally get this fire out, go to sleep in the smoky room. And I mean, the whole hotel reeked in the morning, but we're just like, "Okay, get our shit, and we'll try and get into the van." And the one dude came down, and he was actually an English guy, and he was just like, he could barely talk. He was like crying, like when he saw the hotel room. So I'm like, "Okay." Oh fuck! So we got to go to the front desk, and then all the Japanese Lamar team is there too, right? So they're just watching, like, what these guys going to do about this, and I'm like, "All right, well, give me my money for the trip." And so he gave me the $1,500, and I just threw it on the counter at the hotel, and then the hotel clerk was like, "All right, cool." And the Japanese dudes are just like, "What?" And then Gom's like, "Oh, but now you won't have any money for Electric Town." He's like, "How about I'll lend you $1,500, but you got to promise to come back next year."
Wow.
To pay me back.
Wow.
So I'm just like,
"Oh, that is so sick."
I'm just like, deal. So I got to go get a mini disc player, and it was pretty funny.
Mini disc player when there's just no.
Yeah, and you couldn't get them in the States yet.
Yeah.
So it was like 19. This is fucking 94, 95.
That's so dope, dude. What a trip.
It was pretty funny, but I actually had a blast doing the demo, and it's like it was really hard to get weed there, and someone gives you a joint there, it's like, It was an honor.
Totally.
And, so I was pretty hyped, and yeah, I had a blast, and yeah, we had fun that night.
That's so sick. Yeah, having a weed habit and traveling around would have sucked.
I never had a habit. I just like to smoke it every once in a while, like everybody else.
Yeah.
So,
Sick.
I mean, I obviously bought it back then, but if you have a habit, I think it's something that you need.
Yes.
I didn't really care, but all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I haven't smoked in a few weeks. This will be awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even nowadays I don't really smoke that much. Maybe a little when I'm riding. And I microdose weed. It's like the smallest amount, and after I've done a few runs.
Yeah, man.
It's not. I don't wake and bake or any of that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know that there are some people that just couldn't go anywhere without it. Like, oh shit, I'm going to Japan. How am I going to get my weed there?
Yeah, it was definitely tricky getting it, and that's why it was always just so special. Like, someone gave you a joint over there.
Yeah.
You know how hard it was for them to get that.
Yeah.
Japanese people are some of the nicest people in the world. They have the biggest hearts, and I've always loved going to Japan. And in the last few years, got to go over with Crush. Got us over there for the Holy Bowly and stuff,
sick.
and it's just so fun. Like, especially not having going in the past 20 years, and then getting to go again like 2 years in a row. I was pretty hyped.
Yeah.
And got to go with Jamie, and it's just so fun.
How does that Jamie friendship strike up? Is that just a Baker thing, just from riding with Baker?
You know what? I don't even remember the first time I met Jamie. He used to come up to the Kelly camp in the summertime.
Right.
So I think that's probably where I first met him.
Yeah.
And then our friend Aaron Kane did our tattoos. So Aaron would come up there too and hang out and just friggin' tattoo everybody. And so I think, and then Aaron lived at Dano's place too. And so Jamie just come hang out. So that's kind of where I first met him. And then I just see him at Baker, just like with Temple, and whoever's down there you're riding with, so.
When do you guys first play music together?
In Japan at that first Holy Bowly. I was over there just playing a solo gig, and then Jamie might have brought his guitar, but I think the next year he brought his guitar for sure, and I'd given him a CD or something like that. So we just started messing around or whatever. And I mean, before I ever played guitar, when Jamie was in Alaska with me, he had his guitar with him, and he was playing with Aguchi and stuff, and those guys were playing like Sublime songs, and I was like, oh, this is rad, all these people like me that were snowboarders cruising around, they played music, Dave Lee, and I was like, I want to do that, So eventually I got a guitar, and I remember like messing around at Jamie's way back in the day when I first started, maybe riding for LibTech, and but I was just into it. I always loved music, and I was like, oh, I want to, it's just one of those things I wanted to do. So maybe. Yeah.
What was your first gig? You guys
we played
at the Holy Bowly?
So the second Holy Bowly, we actually had we just kind of practiced in the hotel room the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe we had like 5 songs or something like that, and we just played at the after party at the end. And for the first half, I think before I'd left Whistler, I was bummed that I was back in Whistler. I had to come back and do a gig, and it didn't go good. And I think I walked outside of Dusty's and threw my $3,000 guitar about 30 feet.
Oh,
and
no.
it was on snow,
yeah.
But I hadn't played it since, so I busted the pickup. So we're going to plug in Japan, and all these kids are sitting in front waiting for us to play, and my pickup wouldn't work. So so finally the guy had figured it out, and so I think we did 5 songs. We might have done a couple of those over for an encore.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fun.
When was that Absinthe song that I was talking about?
So I moved back to Whistler. I got my knee surgery 2001, and I'd moved in with my friend Drea Volker, and she's one of the owners of the Mongolian Grill. So I was just kind of playing up until that point, and then at that time I moved in with Drea. I started learning how to sing and play guitar. So as soon as I started doing that, I was like making up songs. And War as Hell was the first song I wrote. And my buddy JD, like right after I'd written that, he's like, oh, we should record those. And I was like, dude, I barely know what I'm doing. I only have one song. And by the time we did record, I just messing around, I think I had a couple songs. And I remember I was playing them up at the camp, and people were stoked on them. And I got a gig playing at the Crab Shack on Canada Day, and I think they paid me like $250 or something like that. And then that winter, Joe Kovacs, who owned the Crab Shack, he's like, yo, do you want to play here once a week or once every 2 weeks? And I'm like, dude, I know like 10 songs. He's like, I don't care, like you'll bring all your friends in and stuff like that. And so Joe, I didn't even have a guitar with a pickup, so Joe actually went and bought me a guitar. Like a $1,300 acoustic, so I could play at his bar.
Rad.
I knew like 10 songs, dude, and I would play them all twice for sure.
That's incredible.
But he just liked it because I brought all the homies in, and my friends liked having somewhere, one place midweek to go and hang out. That was like, and it's the beginning of every season after that, people were like, where's the spot? Where are you playing? We need one night out. We need a West night. So it'd be like at Tapley's or BBK's over at Blackcomb.
Did you ever get used to going up in front of a crowd? Like, did it get to where you were not nervous?
No, you're always nervous, and it's good that you're nervous, because by being nervous, it just means you're preparing yourself. If you went up on stage not nervous, you'd probably have the shittiest show. And once you play a few songs and the sound's good, then you get less nervous. But you're in front of however many people. It could 5 or 10, whatever. But it's you're always.
Yeah, and then you would do big shows too, like Holy Bully. There's going to be a couple hundred people probably, right?
You know what? I think at Mammoth a few years ago, you know, it's in a full bar. So I mean, not that there's 200 people sitting there watching you, but
I know.
But that was a good gig. I went on Jamie Lynn 20-year tour. They invited me to play on, so we did like 4 stops in the States, 1 in Calgary, and we were playing in like, you know, bigger spots. But I mean, it's all just we're just pretty much practicing on stage. It's nothing serious. But the good thing is once in a while everything just clicks, you know.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And there's been a couple Holy Bullies where it's worked awesome. Where we've just been hanging out enough to where everything clicks and the sound's good. Like there's a sound guy. Sound, he makes us sound good. Like if the sound's good, you can have a good show.
Yeah, cool.
That's important. It's like having a good snowboard. You know, it's like if give me a new snowboard, something that I like, it's like you're having a good day and you're probably learning a few tricks. Yeah. Right? So it's the same thing. So new guitar, whatever. It's you're having a good day.
Yeah, that Graham fundraiser show for the coal pad.
Yeah, we played 2 of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of those times we had good sound, you know?
Right.
But it was cool. But it's, you know what, it's like, we get away with it because it's usually just like our friends watching, you know. That's the best, you know. You know, I wouldn't have been doing any of those things, like going down to Vancouver and doing gigs at places down there that wouldn't work. Like you could get away with anything in Whistler, and if your friends are coming to hang out, it's
you're good.
Yeah, you're good.
Well, I can't believe your very first song that you write is in a snowboard movie. Caught my attention. I remember being like, fuck, this is good. Who is this? And then looking and being like, oh God, it's like Wes Makepeace. Is he going to transition from being a full-on pro snowboarder to being a full-on pro music guy?
Yeah, I wish. But no, it's cool. I'm glad people like those songs. You know, it's like,
hell,
I'd pay a lot of money to get them off the internet, but the first thing you ever do is on the fuck. Oh, it sucks. But anyway, people are. I mean, remember Ika a few years ago? He's actually bought a couple songs for his X Games parts, and he's like, Wes, I want to use a song of yours. I'm like, which one? He's like, song 3 on YouTube. He doesn't actually sound like that, but anyway. But people would just put stuff up, and it's like, well, there's nothing I can do about it now. But it, you know what? The recordings I did, I made a few demos, and it was fun doing it, but I would be better off going back now and doing it. Like, I didn't know what I was doing back then, and
Right.
You're not supposed to drink a bunch of beers when you're in the studio, you know, but it was like, well, I get to go into the studio,
Yeah.
we were partying for sure.
It's kind of like snowboarding too. Like, you're talking about trying to shave a tenth of a second off your baker time, but also trying to
Pounding beers between runs.
Yeah, that balance of like, look, I'm not taking it that serious that I'm gonna not smoke weed and drink some beers while I'm here. Like, I'm having fun with everybody.
You'll do better if you drink a beer and smoke a little weed for sure.
Relax a little bit. Yeah.
Unless you're Burt Lamar, probably he wouldn't, but he's got his tie-dye long john. I love you, Burt. I'm not talking shit.
Yeah, when he was on the show, I was just blown away by just his professionalism. He's got a really good memory for the things that he did in snowboarding.
Yeah, because he didn't smoke any weed.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he was an awesome dude, and you know what? Say what you will, he's a skateboarder. And anybody, I mean, there's a lot of people in snowboarding that are totally not on my frequency who I've met through the years, but it's like, well, that dude's a skateboarder and he's a surfer, and so, he's all right. We might not hang out, but people are on different frequencies,
Yeah, speaking of a rad skateboarder, on the opposite frequency of Burt was Mouse, right? Like Jamie Mossberg as a...
Oh, yeah.
Just like that real deal.
You take Quaaludes and go skateboarding. Or maybe it was in between. I don't know how you could skateboard on fucking Quaaludes, but like, I seen some footage of him from back in the day doing interviews when he was just like 14 years old, 15 years old, huge afro, and just lit up, and it's just like the raddest thing ever. Mouse is one of the raddest dudes. He used to just let me hang out at his house all the time. Like, off season, I would just be down in California just hanging at his house, just fucking skating and whatever. And yeah, he was the best.
Was he living in Encinitas at that time?
in Encinitas or Carlsbad.
Yeah.
And he lived in a brown house, and the guy who owned the property was named Mr. Brown. So Kearns and Johnson used to just give him the gears all the time, like about Mr. Brown and his brown house. I think that's why I would go there, because Kearns and Johnson would always just be there editing at the time.
Yeah.
And just causing havoc.
Mayhem.
And just like, just ripping on people, and just it was, if those guys were there, it was a good time. There was a lot of laughter.
They're pretty fun guys to hang out with, I'd imagine.
They're
a lot of creative energy.
Yeah, they're gonna bust your balls, and then you just give it back to them, and then you can just live your life again.
You guys would you guys all surf down there? Was everybody learning to surf?
Yeah. I mean, we'd all go out every once in a while.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. But
yeah, that's a pretty solid break to go.
But I remember I'd go down with Mouse and Sonny Miller, and he would borrow a wetsuit off Tom Curran for me, because that's who filmed the search videos and stuff. And then sometimes Tom Curran would show up, and I'd just be like, okay, I'm just gonna be on the beach watching, And I just would be watching him just surf right into shore on till it got to 2 foot in foam, and he's just still just ripping it up. He's the best.
That's incredible to see. And I'm sure people are like that, about Wes sightings at Blackcomb this year. So you're up there working, teaching instructors how to not be kooks.
A couple times a month. Not this year because of COVID, so we're not working. But a couple times a month I'd take them out, and they're called All Mountain Freestyle, and it's just a hit run session. I teach them to ollie, teach them to shoot the banks, and it's fun. I just you just take them under your wing and show them a good time, and they have to go up and kind of do that with their, if you get a lesson, you're going to want to go up on Blackcomb and have a good Whistler experience, and
have a hit run,
and actually learn something and have a good time, and that's what I make sure they learn something and have a good time, and I'm still doing it, so it's something must be working. So
it's kind of the ultimate job. I remember when I heard Kevin was doing it, I was kind of like, that can't be.
That was my favorite when he was working. I think it was maybe a couple seasons he was doing it before he left for Costa. But that was like the best days. I'd be like driving to the store, that night or something, and just laughing at the shit that came out of his mouth. He's one of the funniest, not only one of the most stylish snowboarders ever, but one of the funniest dudes ever too. Like all around just ledge pretty much.
Yeah, he was the very first guy that stood out as this, like a style icon.
So much style.
Yeah.
And actually, when I saw him riding in Child Games, that was one of Mouse's movies, and I was just like, I was sold. I was like, I want to go film with those guys.
Rad.
Instantly. I was just like, that. And then he'd have like a Hosoi section in there too, like Child Games was rad.
Hosoi with the small wheels, like small wheel Hosoi.
Yeah.
But shredding pool on small wheels, fat pants, like.
Oh yeah,
you're like,
ripping.
that looks like Hosoi except
on
for
so much speed.
Yeah.
Just like ripping.
Yeah.
Or was that pool called Chickens?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I think it was. But anyway, I still love that footage. Yeah, like Hosoi in a pool is like one of the greatest things ever. Besides watching Grayson skate a bowl now, it's like that. It's kind of comparable to
it is,
Hosoi in the 80s, I think.
I think
so much style, like born to skate.
Snowboarders often pay reverence to, like, hey man, we're trying to learn these things on our skateboards, and then we got on a snowboard and like instantly we could do like so much stuff.
Cooler.
It's harder.
It's harder.
It's the barrier to having style on a skateboard is like you either dedicated your life to it,
and we all did, like what else we didn't really do. It was like BMX and skateboarding, and skateboards were cheaper. So
yeah.
My parents weren't buying me expensive BMXs, so it was like, I think once come the 8th grade, it was pretty much skateboard.
Were you freestyle BMX or were you race BMX?
No, I would just like, I grew up traveling around small towns. My parents are cops, so it was like I would just be like looking for like loading docks to jump off of, stairs.
Yeah.
I would like someone digging up a ditch where there's a pile of dirt on one side, and that would be like fucking that's what would be my jump for the day. And It was like I broke so many handlebars, frames. My dad would get my frames welded, and I'm like, Dad, just buy me a prop. My dad's like, I'm not buying you a fucking $400 frame, but then I won't break it. It's like, yeah, right.
Totally.
You'll get $50 worth of used hockey equipment and you'll like it.
Yeah. I forgot that I had my frame welded.
Oh,
and then it's so gross, hey? That big, giant, ugly weld in the middle of your...
You should have seen my Canadian Tire BMX. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I think I got it, and the neck was on backwards. And I didn't know any different, right? I was just like, that's just the way it goes. And
yeah.
I had the ugliest bike. But then I just kind of got better bars, because I break the bars all the time. That was the first thing that went. But then my dad started buying me good bars, and he finally, towards the end, got me a good... he spent like $200 on a frame, so I never broke that one. But that's right.
What frame would it have been?
I don't know. It was
like a Kuwahara or a.
It was a more independent. It was something of that caliber, but was more of an independent.
Rad.
I got it in Kamloops at the BMX store, so it was. I never broke that one.
BMX is such an integral part of the history of snowboarding. Like Craig was either state champ or.
Yeah, Tony Welch always puts up like old pictures of him.
Yeah,
and Craig.
Like Craig's nemesis from Washington was Gary Ellis, who was like world champ after,
I remember
right?
that name.
Yeah, so like they would go back and forth, and Craig was notoriously,
Craig's one of those dudes like Jamie's, just like good at everything he does and super stylish.
Well, also Craig leg comes from BMX, according to Ken Ock, right? Like, because you're trying to keep your knees in.
Oh, okay.
You'd never be like Jamie style on a BMX. Not racing,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You're trying to keep your knees in.
Aerodynamic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I love BMXing.
Yeah,
awesome.
man. Did you shred with Craig a little bit? You go do a
Never
trip or
did.
two?
Ranquit brought him up to Whistler a couple times, and I'd see him in the snowboard shop. Like we'd be all back before Dobus was still allowed, or back when Dobus was still allowed to be hanging out in the fix-it room or in the tuning room,
Yeah.
drinking beers and smoking Marlboro Reds. But at night too, especially after the shop had closed, it would just be like everybody be back there telling stories. Tex, Craig, and I never really hung out with him, but I just see him back there. Maybe a couple words here or there. But I was always stoked when he was around. It was like he was just like, that was one of the dudes. It was like when we started, we were trying to imitate Roach, obviously, and Craig, and fucking Dave Sione, and you know, the dudes who did it, Palmer, you know, those dudes did it the best. That's what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
So we used to call methods Palmers because he did them the best.
The best.
You know, and then we should have called them Roaches because Roach did them the best.
Yeah.
But Grassers. But
yeah.
But I was always stoked to run into those dudes.
You straddled the line between, say, like a Tex, who's like a big mountain line guy, and a freestyle guy. Like,
well, people would say that sometimes, but I've always been such a friggin' jibber. Like, not like jib bonker, but like I like riding the mountain. I like just riding the lifts all day on a good hit run, and I mean, I like riding the big mountain stuff too. But I mean, it was like when I'm at Baker, I always say I hike when Temple's around, you know. So it's like that, because it's like, if it's good, we're riding the lifts, and if not, if we can go up the arm, we do, and that's. Yeah. But I did do some big mountain stuff. But I mean, I'm still to this day just happy on a hit run, you know. I love it.
You see those Arthur Longo edits, and
those are that's my favorite thing. And you know what? Because I really, not because I don't like watching snowboarding. I just been doing it so long. If I'm searching on YouTube, it's like skateboard stuff and surfing. You know, looking for some Nathan Fletcher, or some John, or even old, like, you know, Wave Warriors videos, or, you know, anything skateboarding. I've been around it for so long, I don't like seek it out. If someone puts it on, I'll watch it, but I don't.
Do you watch the natural selection thing?
I watched the Jackson Hole one because it was on. I saw it on Red Bull TV.
Like the highlights or something, or you watched the whole? Like, it was long, hey?
I watched. I think I watched the finals, but I loved it. I mean, it's absolutely that's what it's supposed to be. Yeah,
the one that was just on in at Valhalla.
Baldface Valhalla. I haven't seen that one.
It was more compact.
Yeah.
But you could see that the difficulty in the design was that when you're used to video edits, or you're used to single trick edits on Instagram.
Yeah, it's like watching a surf contest as opposed to watching a surf video. It's
exactly.
way different.
It's different. That's just all it is. I realized it at the end. Oh, they're trying to film a video part in a run. Like, you can't do that. Like, video parts don't happen in a run.
No.
In a run, there's a lot of stuff that happens.
Unless you're Chris Rasman, which I think he just does that every day.
Is that not just the most amazing thing? Chris Rasman's run was like the most insane.
Best. I did see that because it was on Insta something.
Yeah,
Insta
lands in your feed, and you see, like, wait, that guy did that all in a row with no. Yeah, that's just bizarre.
Chris is a bad. All those man boys, they rip.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Bo Bishop is one of those guys that also rips, and he just didn't, you know, like, it takes a couple of tries sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, and if you've only got one try.
Too. He's total. I actually always watch. I say I don't watch snowboarding, especially on Instagram, but I always watch Point to Bow.
Always.
I love him.
Me too.
And I love that when you're using a GoPro snowboarding, that it's point of view.
Yeah.
Like, that's the angle, because it looks silly when it's pointing back at you and the train's moving and you're not.
Why would you want to see that?
It's just a horrible angle.
That's the worst.
No offense to anybody who does it. I like the point of view.
So. Yeah, of course. When I interviewed him and he said he was amateur, I was like, what?
Pro now?
Like, I'm a global amateur. Yeah, he's
deservingly so.
Yeah,
Bo.
Yeah.
You rip, brother.
Big time. So, what's the future like for you? Where's Wes headed?
God, I wish I could head across the border, but it's closed for the time being. You know what? I try and just live in my joy. So whatever I can do during the day to stoke myself out, like it's wintertime, I'm just, you know, I'm usually at Baker, and I mean, I take better care of myself than I ever have, and so I kind of, in one sense, I ride better than I ever have, because I actually know how to turn now. I'm not jumping off crazy shit I used to, but I know how to turn my board, and I get to ride Mervyn boards like a Baker all the time, which is like, there's just nothing better. So if I can do that, I do that. And then in the summertime, I'm, you know, working for my family, you know, usually on a tractor every day mowing something. And
yeah, so your dad retired, did you say 15 years ago? You take early retirement?
15.
Cops get to
he did,
retire when they're young.
He was over it. He's like, he didn't want to, he hated the people he worked with, and he didn't want to be one of those old dudes in a, you know, and he was amazing. I used to, in high school, you know, moving around a lot, I'd have like older kids come up to me like, you Wes Makepeace? I'm like, fuck, yeah, what, why, what did I do? He's like, your dad pulled me over last night going 140 on my motorcycle at 3 a.m, and he told me to slow down and have a good night. And these are like huge kids that are coming up to me like at some bush party, right? And I thought I was gonna get my ass kicked. And he's like, your dad's fucking amazing. And I would meet kids like that all the time, because my dad, you know, he might, you know, catch kids painting at a school or trying to change the signs at a school or something before opening day. But, you know, he might take their beers, but he'd give them a ride home.
That's
you know, he was the coolest.
Awesome.
He was the coolest cop ever. And my mom was the same way. Like, I would get so many people coming like, your parents are amazing, you know, and not all cops are bad, and they were great. So,
and he retired, bought 60 acres.
Yeah, he was gonna just get a 5 acre, like do a bed and breakfast with my mom, and he got this opportunity to get like 60 acres, and so yeah, he went big. He bought it for the grape land, and yeah, we planted like 25 acres of grapes, and then yeah, it takes like 3-4 years. 3 years for 20% growth, and then 4 years you get 100% growth. So yeah, I just learned to, you know, make wine, and my brother's our winemaker, and he kills it. He's won like 2 gold medals in Canada.
What, really?
And
that's your brother Brad?
Yeah. So yeah, he kills it. He just, you know, he worked in a lot of bars in Whistler and just knew a lot about wine, and yeah, he does a really good job. I always joke that like my friends would probably come by just, you know, to be nice, they'd buy a bottle if they came by, but when people are coming by and buying like 3 cases, you know it's good, you know. Yeah, Brad.
That's epic.
So
it's epic.
So it's pretty cool. It's a cool lifestyle. It's, you know, it's a little different thing living and working with your family at first, but once you figure that out, it's like it's the best, you know. I love helping my family in the summertime, and it's good balance, and then I'm just free for the winter to do whatever. So
sounds like your parents were pretty supportive and just like gave you a bit of free rein. And
yeah, I mean, I kind of did what I wanted when I was a kid too. If I was up to anything, I tried to keep it out of, you know, so they didn't find out about it. But I think I was a pretty good kid, but I wasn't never partied or anything when I was a kid, in high school or anything. I was always just skateboarding. That came after. The partying came after.
Right.
But yeah, but I'd always, no matter where I was, I'd always go back home to wherever they had been stationed to. Like sometimes they'd be up in Prince George or in the Okanagan, and I'd always kind of go back in September and hang out. You know?
Oh, that's dope.
And so now it's just like, yeah, it's for 6 months, hanging out, working and stuff. But it's cool to be, you know, to learn how to grow organic food and be sustainable, and especially these, you know, 20 years ago I didn't care too much about organic food, but I sure do now, you know.
When did you go vegetarian?
A couple years ago. I just stopped eating red meat. So I still, you know, I eat fish and eggs and stuff like that, and but I just eat a lot of fruit and vegetables because it makes me feel better. I want to eat live things as opposed to dead things.
Yeah, man.
So, and you know, you still need you know, your vitamin D and your iron and stuff like that, and so I you know, I eat fish a couple times a week, and, you know, eggs every day pretty much. Lots of smoothies. Lots of apples in the summertime, you know, at the orchard. 15 apples a day.
It's dope.
But it makes you feel good, you know. It's like once you stop eating McDonald's and you know, eating live organic food, it's like not only does it taste amazing, but it makes me feel amazing. So I'm, you know, 48 years old. I'm pushing 50. I want to snowboard as long as I can. So I take care of myself nowadays, and I stretch 3 times a day, and I do my work. I do my workouts to, you know, not in the winter because winter time's so boring, but in the summertime every 2 days I do my, you know, my little CrossFit workout, and it, you know, takes me, you know, 30 minutes every 2 days, and it just keeps everything firing that's supposed to be firing. It keeps me standing up straight.
Nice.
And so yeah, I like it.
That's really important stuff.
But I don't, like back when we first got that orchard 15 years ago, I would be like climbing hills on my mountain bike every night, just pissed off. Like I have to do this to stay strong. And it's like, wait a minute, you should be going fucking skateboarding, idiot. So nowadays it's just like after work I go skate and I'll do my workout in the mornings, those days. And if I get free time, I'm skating. So
yeah, staying active into your 50s is, it's the only way to be alive, obviously. Like when I look at my friends, because I'm 47.
Well, you do it, or you start shrinking. Like
yeah. And then you get afraid of everything, and you stop doing stuff, and you're always just sitting around watching movies.
I don't want to be one of those scared dads riding around with a helmet on, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not me.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with wearing a helmet, but I don't want to be riding scared.
Yeah. Well, how about with injuries? Were you able to? Did you have any injuries where you had to like? Yeah,
I blew my when I was filming for Standard in '97. I was hitting a booter in Tahoe with Hetzel and snapped half my ACL. So I think I went back to Rossland after that and got it scraped out. But I mean, once that, and then I was in Alaska with Jamie a month later, so riding with a trainer brace. So it was on a fucking 180 that Lamar made me. So it was just like, it wasn't the greatest. It was fun hanging out in Alaska, but I just wasn't physically ready to be in Alaska. So I was, and it took a while for that to heal. I eventually had to get surgery. Full surgery in 2001, and I got it rebuilt. But I think I have like both knees. I got like 50%. But I still ride with a trainer brace, and I do my squats in the summer religiously. So it's my legs are good. Nowadays, like you're just trying to maintain.
Yeah,
you're just trying to maintain. It's like I still jump and stuff, but it's like you're just not launching off 40 footers all day long to flat. Sure.
Yeah, I was at physio and for my hip, and it's going away, so that's great. And then he started looking at my ankle, which has been chronic for a long time.
Yeah.
And
skateboard ankle
and front foot. And he was like, "You've sprained it, a bunch of times." I'm like,
so many times that there's scar tissue built up in there, and
mine
would lock at a certain point, and I used to try and make like these crazy tongue when I was staying at Dano's, but I'd always be in the back, just stoned, trying to modify my boots so I could ride, and I would eventually had to start. I would have to ride. That's why I started ducking my back foot, because I could drop my knee down further.
Yep.
But when I got surgery in 2001, my rehab girl, she was like, "Okay, I want you to do these squats," and I was like, "Okay, just give me that piece of wood." She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I can't do squat unless because I can't bend down that far, so I need to put my heel up on this." She's like, No, we're gonna fix that. So she put my good leg behind my bad leg for support, and then I would just kind of squat and press through the scar tissue. So she's the reason I'm still snowboarding. Oh, wow. Because back then, snowboarding when your ankle locks up, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work at all.
Because your ankle has to have a certain amount of mobility just so you can jump.
Yeah. And when you get that pain, like it's like game over. It's like day over. You got to take your boot off. You got to go reset. Like it's the worst.
Yeah.
The only reason that I can still snowboard through that is intuition liners. I went through everything. I had a brace inside, an old liner. I thought that I was going to have to quit snowboarding. That would be like
you got so much shit on your built up on your boot, and you're still you can't jump because you don't have the mobility.
Exactly. And then I got those intuition liners, and they just lock my heel in so perfectly that it's just like your entire foot, there's not one part of the liner that's not touching. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Until your toes. You wiggle your toes out.
They're
amazing. They're perfect. And I'm dealing with that with my 17-year-old son. Like
you have a 17-year-old son?
Yeah. So he'll take like 2 runs and be like, "My boots, Dad, they're fucked."
Yeah.
He's like, "There's something wrong with my feet." I'm like, "No, it is an art to find like the boot that works."
Yeah.
And you have to just never compromise.
Yeah. Once I figured that, because I don't like footbeds. I like my foot to be flat on the ground because it feels like that's your foot's flat on your ground or flat on your board on a skateboard, right? Why would I want fucking heel lift on my snowboard? It doesn't make sense. I felt like I was in ski boots for years. So once I figured that out, I tape a arch support underneath my I like Gorilla Tape an arch support underneath my Intuition before I mold it.
And then
so I
mold it
have
so
arch
that's up
support,
there. Yep.
but still my foot's flat on the ground. So it works good.
You got to do it. I mean, I've got all sorts of hacks on my boots. I take out the internal lace.
Yeah.
And I lace the outside lace through the ankle strap of that inside lace.
Oh, wow.
And it
That's
pulls over
crazy.
the tongue, and it just holds them in. So you just pull it up one time, and everything's just locked in.
Yeah, I don't even do up that ankle. So I don't even need the boa.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a luxury.
Oh yeah, because you've got the fuse, which has the boa plus the laces, plus the top strap.
Yeah, it's got everything.
Yeah. Full
meal deal.
Unreal. Yeah, stiff boots. You can still freestyle in those. You can still grab your board.
Yeah, because I don't do them up.
Yeah.
It's a stiff boot, stiff liner that is barely laced up.
Nice.
So I have the support because it's got the double tongue on the inside, the other tongue. And then if I do need any kind of support, I just do up the top strap. But they're barely laced.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
You're Damien.
Yeah. I wish. Where have all the vampires gone? That's what I want to know. He's the best. About Starstruck. I remember seeing him in Aspen. It might have been one of the first X Games, but I was just like so pumped to see him. He's just the raddest dude still.
I'm trying to think of I had him on the show. It was over the phone, and I was absolutely starstruck. I don't know that I've ever seen him in real life. He wasn't at like trade shows and shit.
He still looks exactly the same. Got his mohawk, faux hawk or whatever, and he got his vampire teeth and legit,
dude,
legit
best,
ledge,
man. Legit.
All those guys are. I love all those California classics from the Fall Line films. Sione, Damien. Steve Graham.
Oh yeah.
All those dudes. It was like once those videos came out, that was everything for us.
Roach. That's why I was stoked to talk to Tucker Franson and I went back and kind of watched some of his parts. He has major parts in all those early Fall Line films.
He was one of those skate dudes like Noah and Hetzel. It's supposed to look like skateboarding. So they were doing skate tricks and making it look like, if it doesn't look like skateboarding, it looks stupid, and those guys regulated that. Yeah,
that Sims team was legit back in the day.
Is that who Tucker rode for, was Sims?
Yeah, on those Sims half pipe boards that Roach was on.
I just remember seeing him in he's at Squaw riding around. They're doing road laps or something, and he's in the back of a Toyota with Palmer, and Tucker's talking, and Palmer's just mugging, and it's just cool footage, right?
Yeah,
it's just cool footage. I love those movies to this day.
Yeah, me too.
They did a really good job, and they're timeless.
They're really fun. It was hard to watch the end of Fall Line Films as Mac Dog came up. I mean, Mac Dog, you talk about filming with Standard, like those guys are the guys still now. That the Hatchet Brothers still are the Hatchet Brothers.
Yeah,
today.
those guys are awesome. I wish I could have done a better job for them. After messing up my knee, I wasn't able to do a part, but I was trying at first, but I had but once you get injured, you just got to deal with that. But I mean, I'm just happy that I'm still riding now.
I'm happy that you're still riding now. Like for me, it's being a guy that came from a shop, and most people don't realize this, but at a snowboard shop, a lot of people are just there because they think snowboarding's cool. Yeah. You go like, hey guys, we going riding tonight? And
that's
like,
where we
used
to hang out. That's where we learned about everything. That's where we bought our boards. We used to hang out at the snowboard shops,
Like I would go snowboarding 5-6 days a week.
Yeah, nothing's changed for me. If I can do it, 5 days in a row is perfect, and then pushing it on the last on Friday or whatever. I like riding midweek, no weekends unless I'm a baker. But and then take the 2 days off to rest and get your pop back. Monday morning and just have I call them Magic Mondays after I've had a couple days rest.
That's great. Yeah. I bought a sled this year, so that sled thing is like
open up a whole.
You need
world.
You need 3 days off after that because your body is just so beat. And also,
that's a workout.
You don't go for like right now. A day for me at the local mountains is I'll get there for first chair. ride for 2 hours,
Yeah.
get 10, 20 laps, and then go to work.
Yeah.
On a sled, you would never just ride for 2 hours. I mean, it
No.
takes you 2 hours just to get there.
Takes you 2 hours to get to your spot after
Yeah.
you've got gas and
Yes. And then you drop in and I mean, there are some people that do production laps. Like I see the guys that are like, let's go. We want to try and get 10 laps today. I'm like, take a lap. Okay, I could take like a half an hour to just recollect my thoughts and try and figure out how we're going to get back the sleds back down to where we are.
I gotta go dig out my sled.
I'm like, I'm stressed up there.
Yeah.
And so then I need a few days off after, and I don't like that.
It is intense because you're up there in the elements and you got to know what the F you're doing.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be out there. If you don't know how to use your peeps,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be out there.
Right.
And there's a lot of people out there that don't know their shit. And that, you know what?
Yeah.
That you're eventually going to get served and you're going to maybe jeopardize someone else's life.
Which that sucks.
So
big time.
it's definitely. I mean, people are better nowadays. I mean, back when we first started going out, we probably weren't even using them. You know, like when we, for renting sleds back in the day. This is at the time where we were still filming on the mountain type thing. You know,
Yeah.
like the glory days. I love that shit.
That's dope.
It was sledding was just like so much more. I like doing it, but I was so tall too that. I mean, there's a reason people have their bars raised up like that. We would rent sleds. The bars would be, I'm 6'3", Sam span sitting on this thing, and the bars are down by my knees. You try and hit a jump, and you'd be over the top, fucking like, you just kill yourself. Your knees would be fucking bouncing off the bars on the sled. We're riding on the bumps,
Yeah, man.
So, but it's cool. The people that do it well, and it's.
Yeah, I'm late to
it's
the
an
game,
art
and then
form.
also I live in a place where it's like, it'd be like learning to play hockey at Maple Leaf Gardens while the Leafs are there or something, or with the Canucks playing. Like I'm out trying to figure out like how to make the sled go smoothly, as opposed to like looking like a psycho out there. And the people that are passing you are the best in the world.
Yeah.
And so it is
Like anything,
for sure.
you got to put your time in.
That's I've taken 3 weeks off of it now for an injury, and now I'm ready to go back out tomorrow. I'm excited.
Yeah, because if you got something wrong on your body, you will rattle it loose on the way up there.
Oh God, totally. Well, Wes, it's been absolutely insane talking with you. Thank you for doing this. I
don't know
that
if,
was a lot of fun.
Anybody cares what
they
I
care.
have to say, but
yeah, they care for sure.
I guess we're gonna find out. We'll find out together.
Awesome, dude. Thanks
Talk to you, brother.
Yeah,
always a pleasure.
FNRad shoutouts this week to Wes Makepeace. Thanks for doing the show, dude, even though you were hungover. When he was talking about stretching and eating non-processed foods, I was reminded that I need to recommit. I literally bought a box of Lucky Charms yesterday and ate all the marshmallows out of it. Time to clean it up, man. Congratulations to Jonathan Morgan. You won an autographed gold FNRad sticker signed by the man himself, Wes Makepeace. Send me your address and I'll send that out. I'll be doing a big year-end fundraiser for the FNRad Foundation. As always, if you want to donate to this worthy cause, send a PayPal payment or e-transfer to fnradfoundation@hotmail.com. We got a lot of cool things just around the corner. Be sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboard Podcast, presented by Vans and brought to you by SIA Productions.